Would you dare to enter a mysterious cave knowing you might never return? Four friends did just that when they explored Devil's Hole, a geothermal abyss hiding dark secrets. What began as a thrilling dive turned into a desperate struggle for survival when two vanished without a trace. As panic set in, they realized that their adventure had spiraled into a nightmare. What happened in those dark depths? Where did the two young men disappear in the depths of Devil's Hole? Let's uncover the mystery of the Devil's Hole tragedy. Now, before we dive into this haunting tale, please be aware that the content may be distressing for some viewers. David Rose, Paul Giancontieri, and the Alter brothers, Bill and Jack, were a close group of high school friends. All in their late teens, they were excited about life and looking for adventure beyond their everyday routines. David, a 20-year-old parking attendant, often dreamt of adventure while managing the chaotic flow of luxury cars. His heart raced at the thought of exploring hidden caves, yearning for excitement beyond the Mirage Casino. Paul, at 19, had taken a job in the cafeteria at the nearby Nevada nuclear test site. Now, while his friends joked about his ordinary work, Paul had always been fascinated by the stories hidden in the caves and canyons surrounding the site. He wanted to dive into the secrets of the past, to uncover the mysteries lurking just beneath the surface. The Alter brothers, Bill and Jack, aged 19 and 20, were inseparable adventurers, always seeking the next thrill. They loved to explore abandoned buildings. Their energy and excitement were contagious in their visit to Devil's Hole. The United States has thousands of caves, each with its own unique features. From Mammoth Cave in Kentucky, the longest cave in the world, to Carlsbad Caverns in New Mexico, these natural wonders attract many visitors. Among these geological marvels, Death Valley National Park is famous not just for its stunning views, but also for special places like Devil's Hole. Death Valley is one of the most famous national parks in the U.S. Located in eastern California and stretching into Nevada, it is known for being the hottest, driest, and lowest park in the country. The lowest point, Badwater Basin, is 282 feet below sea level. The park features salt flats, sand dunes, and rugged mountains, creating a striking landscape. The name Death Valley comes from a group of pioneers who got lost there in the winter of 1849-1850. Although they survived, the name stuck, giving the valley a reputation for danger and desolation. Today, people from all over the world visit Death Valley to explore its unique scenery and learn about its natural wonders. Within Death Valley lies Devil's Hole, an important geological feature in Ash Meadows National Wildlife Refuge. Devil's Hole is often called the most mysterious place on Earth. It's a deep pit in Nevada that nobody has been able to measure properly. Some believe that it might even be deeper than the famous Kola Super Deep Borehole, which goes down 12,262 meters, or 7.6 miles. But having explored the rich history and allure of Death Valley and its hidden gems, the friends felt compelled to experience the enigmatic depths of Devil's Hole firsthand. Their excitement would soon lead them to an unforgettable night. On the evening of June 20th, 1965, this group of friends arrived at the famous Devil's Hole. They lacked important safety items like dive knives and signal devices for emergencies. Expert divers would have prepared a detailed dive plan with maps and a proper first aid kit to handle any emergencies. Unfortunately, the friends only had their basic gear, which left them unready for the tough environment they were about to enter. To explore the depths of Devil's Hole safely, they needed much more than just masks and fins. They were missing essential equipment like dive knives for cutting lines, underwater lights for better visibility, and signal devices to communicate in emergencies. These tools are crucial for staying safe and making quick decisions underwater. For example, if a diver got tangled in weeds, having a dive knife could help them escape. Without this important gear, the friends were putting themselves in a risky situation that could lead to serious trouble. The three friends decided that Paul, David, and Bill would dive into the depths of Devil's Hole. Among them, the youngest boy, named Jack, would stay outside. He felt a mix of excitement and nervousness as he prepared to wait on the shore. Jack planned to stay close to their gear, keeping an eye on their things and making sure that everything was in order. He thought it wouldn't take too long for his friends to explore, so he felt confident in his role. He would be ready to call for help if anything went wrong during their underwater adventure. Knowing he was there to watch over them made him feel important, even though he wished he could join them in the water. Jack understood that he needed to stay alert and be ready to react quickly if an emergency came up. Paul Paul, David, and Bill started getting ready for the dive. They put on their masks and fins, adjusted their snorkels, and checked each other's gear to make sure everything was set. Little did they know what was about to happen. The structure of the Devil's Hole is not some ordinary cavern. It features a unique and complex underwater architecture that poses significant challenges to divers. The entrance features a deceptively calm, water-filled vertical shaft that plunges sharply into a vast, echoing chamber below. The entrance itself is deceptively serene, measuring just 8 feet wide and 60 feet long. However, nobody knows how much deeper and more dangerous the territory below is. Around 90 feet down, the path narrows into a tight passage that opens up into a huge space called Acre Chasm. This chasm is very wide, and divers often say that all they see is an endless amount of water beneath. Some of the divers believe the Devil's Hole reaches depths of at least 932 feet, or even more. As Paul, David, and Bill began their dive into the Devil's Hole, their excitement increased. They passed through the difficult, narrowed path to the main chamber and reached the middle, a huge space that felt thrilling and a little scary. After a few minutes, Bill began to worry as his oxygen was running low faster than he expected. A feeling of panic grew in his stomach as he signaled to Paul and David to come back up. They all felt they might run out of oxygen, making their situation serious. Waiting outside the cave, Jack also started to feel nervous, watching the minutes go by. The silence felt endless, and he grew uneasy. After a frantic struggle, Bill and David finally surfaced, gasping for air. Panic gripped them as they realized Paul was missing. Jack watched them remove their oxygen masks, his heart sinking. They looked around, scanning the water and the rocky shore, but Paul was nowhere to be found. They quickly decided to go back down into the cave without waiting any longer. This second dive was colder, making it difficult for them to pass through the cave entrance. When they reached the center of the chamber, David and Bill began to look around, but there was still no sign of Paul. Feeling increasingly anxious, David decided to swim even deeper, moving quickly into the darkness. After a few moments, Bill lost sight of him completely. The only source of light was Bill's flashlight, but as he searched frantically, the beam slowly started to fade, leaving him in growing darkness. He kept calling out for both David and Paul, hoping for a response. As the water around him became even darker, he realized he needed to come up with a plan. Feeling a mix of fear and determination, he decided it was time to go back up to the surface and inform Jack, hoping to figure out what to do next. After waiting some time outside of the cave, Jack and Bill hurried to ask the local authorities in Death Valley for urgent help to find David and Paul. The officials knew how dangerous it was to dive in the dark cave. A search team of 5 divers, led by Houts, worked tirelessly under the scorching 105-degree heat throughout the day. Despite their determination, the conditions were harsh, making it difficult to search the dark depths of the cave. Each member of the team took turns diving, hoping to find any sign of David and Paul, but time passed without success. As they assessed the situation, they realized that they needed an expert diver, someone who was familiar with the tricky conditions, especially someone who had experience diving in Devil's Hole. The authorities quickly contacted Jim Houts, who had extensive experience diving in Devil's Hole and knew the complexities of the cave system well. Understanding the risks and challenges, he was ready to help. Jim had also inspired these friends to explore the cave in the first place. His thrilling stories of underwater adventures and discoveries had sparked their curiosity and excitement. Now, as they faced the consequences of their decision, Jim's knowledge and skills were crucial in navigating the dangerous situation. Jim was fully prepared with his diving partner, and before they entered the water, they gathered to map out the cave system. Having dived in Devil's Hole many times, Jim knew all the areas well, including a section known as Brown's Room, which contained air pockets. He explained that if Paul and David were running low on oxygen, they might have tried to reach this spot for safety. With this plan in mind, they suited up and made their way into the water, determined to search every possible location. Jim's familiarity with the cave gave them hope that they would find Paul and David, as he was ready to navigate the twists and turns of the underwater passages to bring them back to safety. Jim and his partner went down into the cave. As they crossed the entrance through the main chamber, they reached the space where upwards was the way to Brown's room. Now, the entrance to be able to reach Brown's room was quite small, and they had to hug the walls to be able to reach out. And as soon as they did, they found out that there was nobody. And they were both shocked that if both divers weren't there, that meant that they had died by now because they didn't have enough oxygen to stay down for that long. Typically, a standard scuba tank holds enough air for 30 to 60 minutes of diving, but factors like depth and exertion can significantly reduce this time, especially in high-stress situations. If a diver is too deep or panics, they can use up their air much faster. Jim imagined the moment when Paul and David first noticed their tanks getting low. Feeling panic set in as they tried to find their way back. As they swam to the Browns' room, their hearts would have raced, and their breathing would have quickened, which would eventually use up even more oxygen. If they had struggled to reach a safe spot, they might have used their air reserves up too quickly. Jim and his dive partner came out of Brown's room and started going deeper into the cave to the area known as the lower ledge. Now, this area is not ideal to look into if you're looking for divers who might be alive, but due to the heavy chances that they had already been out of oxygen, Jim started logging down to at least find something that could give them proof. As they descended, the rocky path became increasingly treacherous. It was filled with rocks and unstructured pathways. But there, Jim saw something that opened his eyes in shock. Jim spotted a dive mask and a single fin lying on the ground, half buried in the mud. His heart raced as he exchanged a worried glance with his partner. They knew that these items could be important clues about what had happened to Paul and David. Without wasting any time, they quickly began searching the area, looking for anything else that might help them understand the situation. The water felt colder as they moved, and shadows swirled around them, adding to their anxiety. They carefully checked every corner, hoping to find more signs of their friends. But after a thorough search, they realized that they needed to head back to the surface to see if the dive mask and fin really belonged to David and Paul. As they were going up to the surface, Jim's mind raced with questions. Where were Paul and David? He kept thinking, is there something wrong that we're missing? He felt a growing sense of dread, wondering if they were overlooking something important. When Jack and Bill saw the dive gear, they immediately recognized it as belonging to their friends, David and Paul. The realization hit them hard, confirming their worst fears about what might have happened in the cave. The authorities requested Jim and his partner to return to the cave and search for David and Paul's bodies. As the only experienced divers available, they felt a heavy responsibility to find their friends and bring closure to the situation. Jim and his partner returned to the cave, following the same path as before. When they reached the lower ledge, they felt a strong need to go deeper. This time, they were determined to find the bodies or any signs of the young boys. The darkness surrounded them, but they kept moving, their lights cutting through the murky water. After looking around, they found nothing. No sign of anybody or remains like before. They felt that they were missing something because usually when somebody runs out of oxygen and drowns in a cave, their body tends to rise to the surface due to buoyancy. This happens because as the body begins to decompose, gases accumulate in the intestines, causing it to float. Typically, after drowning, the body should be found near the surface, especially in a contained environment like a cave where water currents are minimal. In such conditions, the stillness of the water makes it more likely for a body to remain close to the top, making recovery easier. This knowledge added to Jim's growing concerns as he searched for any signs of Paul or David. All of a sudden, Jim's eye caught a small tunnel-like hole that was pulling the surrounding water towards it. It was something that he had never seen before. He tried to cross the entrance to the tunnel, using a weighted line to measure the depth in the water or to determine the vertical drop of the tunnel. It helps divers and explorers gauge how deep a body of water is or how far down a tunnel goes. He released the weighted line into the hole and he watched as it sank easily past the 932-foot mark, disappearing into the darkness without hitting anything. This depth was shocking. It showed that the tunnel went much deeper than what most divers could handle. Most divers were only trained to go down to about 130 to 200 feet, making the idea of going further very dangerous. The deepness filled them with dread, highlighting the risks they faced. With each foot that the line sank, it became clear that this was a place that they might never escape from. He told his partner that we're not going down there, and they both came back to the surface. When they emerged, Paul and David's friends were waiting anxiously for news. Sadly, it was confirmed that both boys were presumed dead, but their bodies had not been found. To this day, David and Paul remain missing, and their families are left with unanswered questions. The tragedy not only sealed the fate of two young lives, but also led to stricter regulations at Devil's Hole, forever changing how the site is approached. As we think about the tragic loss of David and Paul, their disappearance leaves us with unanswered questions. What secrets are hidden in the depths of Devil's Hole? Today, we're exploring two Australian caving stories. The first shows how even the most careful cavers can still get trapped underground when unexpected trouble strikes in Wombian Cave. And the second story shows how Mother Nature can still reach for you even if you escape the cold, dark clutches of West Deep Creek Cave. Australia's amazing caves. Australia is packed with caves to keep local splunkers busy for a lifetime. And the largest, deepest, and most amazing caves draw explorers from all across the world. Some of the most impressive Australian caves include the Exit Cave System, Coralin, and Anaconda. The Exit Cave System is one of the longest caves in Australia, with multiple entrances across its nearly 10-mile stretch. Despite its fame, Exit Cave still has unknown portions. Plus, cavers still haven't made complete or detailed maps of its interior yet, which makes it an alluring choice for many adventurous spirits looking to get a slice of caving glory. Some of the entrances lie by the picturesque d'Entrecasteaux River by Pindar's Peak. Exit Cave's proximity to this water causes most of the cave to remain flooded, with multiple sumps and resurgences along its dark expanses. This vast and mostly unknown cave is challenging for splunkers to explore since it's only accessible by a long hike that involves climbing up and down steep terrain while carrying scuba and survey gear. Exit Cave and many of Australia's southern caves are also extremely dangerous for sporting cavers since many are far away from civilization, deep under, and not fully mapped. If you get lost or injured in one of these caves, chances are no one's going to save you. Even mounting a recovery mission for your body would take extreme effort. Coralin Cave is another one of Australia's most exciting caves. This time, the scenery outside is marred by the nearby Karamoka rock quarry. Mining operations in the area have also disrupted portions of the cave, revealing fissures in the rock that were loaded with fossils, indicating extreme tectonic activity in the distant past. Despite the obvious risk that mining poses to the cave's interior, some of Coralin's biggest enemies aren't cavers or even miners, but instead rabbits. The cave's entrance is a large funnel-shaped hole, or a dolina, on top of a hill protected by a fence. To maintain stability of the entrance, speleological groups planted grass and other local plants to keep the soil and rock formation intact. But rabbits are digging up the dirt and gnawing on the plant life, which can expose rock and lead to erosion. Coralin Cave also has its own fossil graveyard dubbed Dreamland, which might reference native folklore. Researchers have found new species of kangaroos and koalas in Coralin's expansive underground labyrinth that sprawls across 3 levels across a distance of 8.7 miles. Another amazing Australian cave is called Anaconda, that lies beneath Mount Anne. This cave was formed during the Precambrian era between 3.6 billion years and 539 million years ago. The name Anaconda references native languages of Papua New Guinea, and it roughly translates to Anne's Stone House. This cave is located under the highest mountain in Australia's premier caving region to the south of the country, including the island of Tasmania. Anaconda is one of the deepest caves in Australia, spiraling 1,224 feet into the earth. Like Coralin, Anaconda also has a dolina entrance, but this one is massive. Hydrogeological maps of both the cave and the Lake Timp region above ground indicate that Anaconda could extend another 270 feet deeper than splunkers have previously mapped. That would make it the deepest cave in Tasmania. Now, it's time to meet the cavers of Australia and the groups that keep them safe while exploring the dark mysteries below ground. Australia's Caver Commission and Rescuers. The cavers of Australia are kept safe by the Australian Cave Rescue Commission. The ACRC is a component of the larger Australian Speleological Federation. The ASF is an environmental organization and non-profit that also serves as the representing body for 23 of Australia's caving clubs. The ASF also represents Australia during meetings of the International Union of Speleology. Although the Cave Rescue Commission is separate from emergency first responders, they can still help send rescuers into action. And the ACRC also coordinates rescue operations among its members and even across the globe. In volume 218 of their Caves Australia journal, the Australian Speleological Federation published a detailed rescue guide for cavers who want to start their own clubs, or for those who are considering venturing into more challenging caves. Every caver should learn as much about cave rescue as possible. That way, if cavers find themselves trapped, they'll have some idea about what to do. The ASF helps Australian cavers and rescuers through field exercises like simulated sump extraction operations. Real sump rescue missions are incredibly dangerous. Sumps are portions of caves that are either mostly or totally submerged in water. They can be straightforward U-shapes, or they can be winding passages of rock that extend for miles. Cavers have to navigate these passages with no light other than the lamps they bring with them. And dirt also reduces the visibility of many sumps to 0 feet. If the guiding line breaks, then cavers and rescuers alike are at the mercy of their own memory and luck if they're going to survive. Sometimes, sumps can suddenly appear during floods as rainwater trickles down into caves. And that's why the ASF taught a class at Imperial Cave. Imperial Cave is part of the Genelin Cave Network, which contains show caves that highlight speleothems like rimstone pools, calcite formations, and fossil displays for both families and average non-splunkers. Imperial Cave is also part of a network that stretches under the Blue Mountains. You might think these show caves aren't worth the time of real rescuers or splunkers, but these caves provide excellent places to learn the basics. Show caves have lots of people nearby, including knowledgeable staff. They might have extra rescue equipment, and many of these facilities also have phone service to contact emergency services even if something goes wrong during training. Plus, it's important for rescuers to learn the routes of these common caves, since more people means more chances for accidents, and these visitors might not understand the risks of heading off on their own. A single foolhardy misstep could lead to disaster. Sometimes even these tame caves can claim lives. The Wombayan Cave Rescue. That's almost what happened to one man who went venturing into Wombayan Cave. Wombayan was created 400 million years ago. Native populations used the cave for shelter, and it was central to the Gundungura people, who told legends saying the cave was formed in a contest between the mythical reptile Garangach and a tiger cat, Maragan. Caving groups created a 417-hectare wildlife perimeter called Wombayan Karst Conservation Reserve to honor the historical significance of this cave and to protect native plants and birds like the flat-faced frogmouth and the brown goshawk. Wombayan has a show cave that offers campgrounds, hikes, and guided tours. There's also a self-guided shorter tour through Fig Tree Cave, which leads many to believe these caves are perfectly safe. But even though these caves seem like they're just for serene nature walks, they're still massive, volatile expanses of deadly rock and water. Even though it's tame, the guided tour lasts around 2 hours. What would happen if someone got lost? Or worse, how long would it take to find them, and would they be alive or dead? One 46-year-old man from Sydney was about to find out just how unforgiving caves can really be. The 46-year-old wasn't a novice caver, but he wasn't an expert either. He entered into the cave to take photos of gorgeous speleoforms that are open to the public. Then, he ventured a little further to get high-quality pictures of the more rugged parts of the cave that were just off the beaten path. He reached a narrow stretch of the cave and turned sideways to shuffle through. The jagged rocks pushed against his chest and scraped against his overalls. Tight squeezes like these can make even veterans get a blood pressure spike. But he saw the next portion, and he thought he'd make quick work of this challenge. 1 foot at a time, he slowly inched through the passage, being careful not to break his expensive camera. He was near the end of the passage when he heard a sound. Rocks began to bounce between the cave's close walls, rumbling as they nestled into place at the cave floor. He winced and braced for impact. Thankfully, the photographer wasn't in their path. If he was, he'd be a goner. As the rustled dust settled, he saw he was pinned in this tight squeeze deep below ground. When he didn't arrive back at the entrance, the staff at Wombeyan sounded the alarm to the Australian Cave Rescue Commission, who dispatched the Volunteer Rescue Association's Cave Rescue Squad. This branch might be the most elite members in the Australian cave rescue scene. An Australian politician said they were like a paramilitary organization because they executed their missions with shocking precision and speed. The team is split between those who specialize in vertical caves and those who deal with horizontal caves and their various sumps. Because Wombeyan had fabricated walkways and running electricity, the rescue team was able to set up a base camp close to the trapped photographer. However, they realized it was going to be a long wait. The trapped caver's lights started to die out while the team slowly chipped away at the loose rock. They gradually widened the passageway, being careful not to cause a cave-in. After 2 days of digging, the rescue team reached the trapped climber. He was shaken and weak, but alive. The rescuers strapped him to a stretcher and loaded him onto an awaiting ambulance. Sometimes these basic tours can turn deadly, and sometimes casual caving trips can bring entire families to the brink of life and death. Revenge of West Deep Creek Cave. Another brush with death happened over at West Deep Creek Cave, which belongs to the Orangobilly Cave system beneath the Snowy Mountains south of Sydney. One day in May of 2022, a group of Australian cavers led by Phil Fleming and Jason Moole got together to go exploring. They wanted to brush the dust off of their caving gear after taking a long break from the exhilarating, exhausting, and deadly sport of caving. The 2 friends made it into a journey for their whole families, including their kids. On the day of the expedition, the team of 8 found their way inside West Deep Creek Cave, making descent in daylight without any problems. They each shuffled down large boulders just past the entrance and carried on to explore the depths and wonder of West Deep Creek Cave. As they walked and crawled, they gabbed about how cool it would be if this entrance was unexplored. Another member of the team, Ed Coidel, was an expert surveyor who worked on Lechuguilla Cave in Mexico. Ed spent his time in West Deep Creek taking notes and researching. He also rained on their parade, pointing out marks in the rock that had been scraped off by metal from the gear of cavers before them. Even though they weren't breaking any new ground, the group pressed on, until it was time to head back. The return trip is when things got a little dicey for this casual family outing. The children didn't have the strength to overcome some of the short climbs on the way out. With help from Ed, they all made it over, but they were taking longer than they had anticipated. As they approached the surface, rain started to slip across the rocks and stream through the dirt into the cave. Focused on the physical task at hand and hypnotized by the fun of caving, they hadn't even thought to check the time as minutes turned to hours while they trudged back out of West Deep Creek Cave. Miraculously, they reached the exit and surfaced, but their troubles weren't over. The rain soaked into their heavy clothing and the cold air of the mountain started to chill. The team also had to hike back uphill to reach their cars. Thin ice started to form in muddy pools, causing cavers to slip as they pushed through the dense overgrowth of the surrounding forest. There was no path to the cave, so they had to bushwhack by cutting and pushing through the forest in front of them. Temperatures continued to drop as the sun, already blocked by rain clouds, began to set over the horizon. The 8 cavers crossed through natural blackberry bushes, but they were too stressed to stop and eat. At that moment, one of the members took out his compass and told them they were heading the wrong way. Half of the party agreed, while the other half wanted to continue on their current trajectory. Backtracking would mean pushing through more branches and thorns, and they were already drained. Tensions flared as both sides tried to convince the other. Then, the party split up. Shortly after splitting up, the man who suggested going a different route realized in horror that his compass had actually broken during a tight squeeze between gravel and a large boulder inside the cave. Panic started to take hold. Half of the group was lost in the dark wilderness as the threat of hypothermia began to creep ever closer. Using the last minutes of light left in their equipment, the lost team saw something in the shadows. The mouth of a dangerous beast that had killed thousands of would-be adventurers over the years. The entrance to another cave. Using only a map, they made it to East Deep Creek Cave, just up the mountain, and the designated meeting place of the other half of the team. The others were already there, and they all agreed to rest and eat. They rallied what little energy they had left, ignoring blisters and scrapes that stung in the cold wind and rain, and powered through to their cars. They arrived home at 4 a.m., just as rescue crews were being prepped by the New South Wales Cave Rescue Squad. They replied to worried messages from relatives and informed the search party that they made it back in one piece. Just goes to show that it doesn't matter how safe caves look. Sometimes it doesn't even matter if you exit caves safely. The elements can claim your life as well. But if you survive nature's wrath and the terrors of caving, you can confidently say you've made it through hell and back. What do you say? Will you head inside? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed these 2 Australian cave rescue stories, click that like button to let us know, and drop a comment if you've ever been to any of these amazing and deadly caves. Subscribe to the channel for more stories of brave adventurers teetering on the brink of life and death.